So, this is intended to be first in a series of little video clips showing the gear that I use for hill walking and also for backpacking. As you can see, there's snow on the ground. It's February, so I'm going to start looking at the stuff that I take when I'm going out for the day in winter. And the idea is that everything I take will cope with whatever the weather throws at me, and if absolutely necessary, I could survive a night out. I'm not carrying camping gear. A night out's probably not going to be very comfortable, but I should be able to survive it. I'll start with trekking poles, which are arguably even more useful when it's snowy than the rest of the year, especially if you put snow baskets on them so that they don't sink right into deep snow. I always take trekking poles, however, it's wise to remember that trekking poles do not substitute for an ice axe. You can't use trekking poles to arrest a slip. You can't thrust them into the snow so that the slip stops immediately. If you start to slide, you can't use them to self-arrest. They don't have a pick, and if you try plunging them into the snow, they'll probably break. So an essential item is an ice axe, which, as you can see here, I usually carry on the back of the pack. However, you've got to take the pack off, undo straps and things to get at it. If I think I'm going to need it, or I've used it and I know I'm going to need it again soon afterwards, then I put it down the back of the pack between the shoulder straps, and then I can pull it out and have it handy without taking the pack off. And this is a hill walking or general mountaineering axe. It's not designed for technical climbing. You can't climb steep slopes from pointing up them with this. It's not designed for it. It's not strong enough for belays, but for general hill walking, what I do, it's ideal. In terms of the clothing I'm wearing, I always have a thin pair of gloves, which are not that warm, though sometimes they're perfectly adequate. If the wind gets up or it's well below freezing, they won't be enough on their own. But these are the basis of all my handwear. We'll see the other stuff later. And they scrunch up into a tiny ball, and I can shove them in a pocket. If I don't need them for a while, they stay warm and dry, I can get them out again. My shell jacket has big pockets on the chest that I can get at when I've got a pack hip belt on. Lots of jackets have pockets down here, which may be convenient for general use or around town, but they're cut off by a pack hip belt and so useless. So I like pockets actually for the outdoors that are up here where they're easy to access, and this has got 3 large ones, and you can use these ones as hand warmer pockets if you want. And that one is a Napoleon style pocket, and I say the gloves can easily be pushed in here, keeping them warm and dry until I need them again. And in this pocket, that's where my map lives. Now, this is only a little map, though it's perfectly adequate for the area it covers is 140,000, but the pocket is big enough for a full-size Ordnance Survey or Harvey's map. Also in here I keep my mobile phone. It's accessible because I use it as a camera as well, and I want to be able to get it out quite easily. I may use it for navigation with View Ranger, but photography tends to be the main purpose of the phone when I'm in the hills. What I don't do is carry the compass in the same pocket, because compasses and phones don't mix. The phone can interfere with the magnetism of the compass, and you can end up with reverse polarity where the north pointing needle now roughly points south, but it's not a complete switch over, so you can't just say, well, I'll use the compass the other way around and it'll work. It probably won't, so it's best to keep them separate. The jacket is windproof, snowproof, waterproof. The trousers are the same. This Paramo stuff has a lining inside, so it's fairly warm. I find it too hot in summer, but in winter conditions it's ideal, and it's really breathable. And the jacket has wide cuffs, so I can pull the sleeves up if I overheat. It's also got pit zips for ventilation, and it's got a big hood with a wired peak, which is great in storms. The trousers are similar material, so they're reasonably warm. They won't cope with the worst weather, but then I'd wear something on top of them. Some people wear thinner trousers and leggings, long johns, long base layers, whatever you call them, underneath, but I don't like doing that. It has a problem, and the problem is, suppose you overheat. You want to sit on a cold snowy hillside, take your trousers off, take your leggings off, put your trousers back on. Well, I don't want to do that. I'd rather start with something I'm going to wear all day and then put layers on top if necessary. And these also vents whatever trousers you use in winter. It's worth having side vents, because then if you do start to overheat, you can undo those, let some of the warmth out. Now, the pack itself, you can see, is fairly big, bigger than most people would use. This is 50 litres, in fact. I like a big pack in winter simply because it's easy to get stuff in and out. You don't have to pack it precisely. If I'm looking for stuff in bad weather, or I'm just shoving stuff in because I want to get moving, it's nice to have all the extra space. So it's very rarely full, but as I say, the space is useful. And if it's so hot I take this jacket off, it can go in the pack. Or maybe I'll take my mid layer off. Now, underneath the main jacket, I have a base layer with a zip neck, usually merino wool or merino wool mix, and then a reasonably light mid layer because I don't want to overheat, and I've got other warm clothing if I need it. This is a synthetic filled one, very thin but quite warm for the weight. It's not windproof, however, unlike most synthetic filled jackets, so it's very breathable, so it works well with this jacket. I can wear it on its own as long as there isn't even a breeze, but a slight cool breeze will cut straight through it. And now we can have a look and see what's in the pack itself. It's got the lid pocket, a bag of food. Now, it's nice to have lots of snacks. I don't tend in winter weather to stop for a long period of time unless it's amazingly calm, because you just get very cold very quickly. So I prefer to have various energy bars of different sorts and a bag of trail mix, and I say different bars which are high calorie and which I can eat as I go along. And it's convenient again to have these in the top pocket, or even in a jacket pocket, some of them in a jacket pocket, so whenever I start to feel hungry or I'm running out of energy, I can have a quick snack. The compass needs to be handy. If it's not in a jacket pocket, it's in there. If it's in a jacket pocket, the phone is in there. As I say, I don't mix them. And the little cord means in really bad weather, if I'm using it a lot, I can attach it to a zip puller so that I'm not going to lose it or by dropping it in the snow. And for when the weather's good, which hopefully it is all the time, but of course it won't be, dark glasses. When it's bright and sunny and the snow, these are essential if you want to be able to see properly and you don't want to end up risking snow blindness, or at least very sore eyes from the glare. And the opposite end of things is a head torch. Short days in winter, you may be starting off in the dark. I'm more often coming down in the dark, but it's nice to have a head torch, very handy, so I can get it out as soon as I feel can't quite see properly now, I'm starting to stumble, I better have a light. And then, as I said, other handwear. This is a similar pair of gloves to the ones I had on earlier, a little bit thicker, a little less easy to do things with them on, but then a bit warmer. And they're windproof, reasonably snowproof, and quite light to carry. If I then my hands then still feel cold, I have some shell mittens. These aren't very warm in themselves, they're not lined, they're very thin, but they're wind, waterproof and snowproof, and worn over gloves like that, they are amazingly warm. You can't do much when you've got them on though, but it's easy enough to take them off, do something, you know, with just the thin gloves on, put these back on again. And of course, having more than one pair of gloves means that if a pair blows away or gets absolutely soaked, I've got spare ones. I'm not going to end up suffering bare hands. And then a couple of mechanical things in here. This is not an essential item, but I always take it. It's a weather tracker. I can record the wind speed, the temperature, the humidity. I can see, it'll record it during the day, so I can see what it was at different times, and it's useful for seeing, you know, just how bad the weather's been, but also how gear is performing in different conditions. And then, whoops, it's come undone, a recharger. This is for the phone, but these days also for the headlamp, and it's very useful because if I'm using the phone for navigating or even taking a lot of photographs with it, and the battery runs down, and then I need it in an emergency, what am I going to do? As we know, people get caught out like that. But if you've got one of these, this will charge it at least twice. So I've actually got 3 charges for the mobile phone, and on a day trip I'm not going to run out of power like that. So this is, I think, an essential item if you're relying on your mobile phone for anything at all. Then in the pack itself, as I say, I like a big roomy pack, and one reason for that is because I can have an insulated jacket loosely packed in the top, so it's not squashed down, it doesn't have to loft up, it's nice and thick already because it's been so loosely packed in the top of the pack. And I can, anytime I stop and start to feel cold, I can just slip it on. And whatever insulated jacket I have, I like it to be big enough that it'll go on over everything else, so I don't lose heat by taking a jacket off in order to put this on and then putting the jacket back on top again. And as you can see, this will fit fine over the fairly bulky Paramo jacket. And if you're going to wear a jacket like this, it does need to be obviously windproof, otherwise you're not going to get the maximum insulation from it. And then an item I regard as essential and most people don't carry is a snow shovel. A small, short, light one like this, as you can see, fits inside the pack. It's easily clipped together. If I stop and there isn't any shelter and there's deep snow, I can easily make one with the shovel. And if in emergency, I can dig a snow shelter. So if I have to spend the night out, or I have to wait for someone to come or something to happen, this is very useful. And if someone is avalanched, this can be used to help find them or dig them out. But certainly in deep snow, I wouldn't go without a snow shovel. I also wouldn't go out with crampons. And these are fairly lightweight walkers crampons. Again, as with the ice axe, I'm not going to be doing any technical climbing, I'm not going to be doing any front pointing. I don't need crampons designed for that. I need crampons like this, which are, they've got 10 points, they're steel, they're quite sharp, they'll fit most walking footwear. I mean, the boots I'm wearing, these boots are what you might call heavy duty hill walking boots. They're not winter mountaineering boots, they're not fully rigid, they're semi-stiff, but they do flex at the forefoot. they've got a stiffened toe cap. I can kick steps with them, I can edge in hard snow with them, and with the crampons on they're excellent. And again, for hill walking, for what I do, the boots and the crampons are a fine combination. I don't need anything any more technical or climbing orientated than that. And the crampons come with this tough bag, and because the points are so sharp, I keep them in the bag because I don't particularly want those points sticking into and damaging any of my other gear. Now, the gloves I've shown so far will cope with nearly all conditions, but sometimes my hands can get a bit too cold, and for that I carry these thick mittens. These are extremely warm, really thick. You can't do anything when you've got them on. I mean, you can hold a pole or an ice axe, that's about it. But I find that I rarely wear these for more than half an hour because my hands warm up so fast. I can then go back to wearing the other gloves. But again, I wouldn't be without a pair of really warm mitts like this. And also hats. This hat is made of Windpro fleece, which is wind resistant, not fully windproof, and it's quite warm. Most of the time, like the thinner gloves, it's fine. But if there's a real blizzard or the wind really gets up, it's not quite adequate. And also having a spare, again, in case it blows away or gets soaked, is always useful. So I have this hat. Now, this is wind and waterproof, snowproof. It has a peak, which is good in stormy weather, and it's fleece lined, so it's very, very warm. It has a neck cord, as does this one, and ear flaps, which this one has as well. I find the neck cord really useful, stops it blowing off in the wind if you tighten it up. And also though, if I'm starting to overheat, I don't want the hat on, but only for a short while. I don't want to take it off and stick it in a pocket or put it in the pack. With a neck cord you can just do that. Push it back off your head, immediately feel cooler, and when you need it again, just pull it back on. And they say that applies to both my hats. Sometimes I take another hat where you can't do that, and then I remember why I like ones where you can. To go with the food, a hot drink. This can make a huge difference to morale if you're feeling a bit weary or a bit chilled, or you know you've still got a long way to go. It really warms you up, doesn't freeze of course. If it's not adequate and you think you're going to get thirsty, you can always put a bit of snow in to melt to up the volume, though I rarely do that. What you have in it, anything hot and to some extent sweet, so you've got the sugar boost. I like hot fruit cordial. Some people like tea, coffee. Say it doesn't really matter. The important thing is to have a hot drink. Then delving further down into the pack now, goggles. Again, the dark glasses, if it's sunny, dark glasses really are essential. But if the wind's blowing, snow is blowing in your face, the light's flat, dark glasses are actually worse than useful because they cut visibility. Then you need goggles which will protect your eyes from driven snow and spin drift and the wind, but also if they have sort of orangey pink type lenses like this, they actually make visibility a little better in flat light. I don't wear them very often, but I wouldn't be without them. And the usual first aid kit, I carry that year round. It doesn't change for winter. A ditty bag. This has got all sorts of various things in it, including spare batteries for the head torch and a spare head torch. If the batteries go, or I drop the head torch and it breaks, but if the batteries go, it's much easier to try and sort things out with another head torch, rather than having to fiddle around to, you know, get the casing done up again after it's sprung open, or change batteries when you can't really see and your fingers are cold. And these days headlamps are light enough and small enough, I think carrying two makes sense. And in here I also, just in case of a real emergency, I have a spot device, which I hope never to use. A personal locator beacon, there are similar devices, this is the one I happen to have, but it does mean that in an emergency I can call for help. I say, and there's bits of duct tape and various possible repair items in here in case, you know, I need to patch something. And then I was saying that these trousers may not be adequate all the time. I carry two pairs to wear over them if necessary. Simple over trousers with a full length zip, so they're easy to get on and you can ventilate them. These could be used all year round. They're just waterproof, they're very light. I mean, I don't need them for the waterproofness with these, but just adding an extra windproof layer on top and having that layer of air between these and these means they add a fair bit of warmth. They're usually all I need when walking, even in the worst weather. However, when I'm stopping, or if the weather's even worse than the worst weather, I have insulated trousers. These are incredibly warm. I don't think I've ever walked for more than about half an hour in them without overheating. But if you're stopped for any length of time, they're great. And as an emergency item, they're great. Lots of people again carry leggings, long johns as their backup item in case of emergency. I'd much rather carry these. And again, they've got side zips, so they're easy, long side zips, easy enough to get on and off. They're windproof, snowproof. They're not waterproof, but if it's likely to be raining, I'm not going to be wearing anything as warm as those. And I also carry in the pack a sit mat, relatively long one if it's fully folded out. I usually use it like that because it's warmer. But again, if you're stopping, you're going to sit on the snow or on a cold rock, this can keep you a little bit warmer and make it more comfortable. If you're stuck out at night, of course, some insulation from the ground is essential, and I can use this in combination with the pack, because this pack has a flat back which is padded to act as insulation. It's not one with, you know, those curved sprung backs, which I don't really like in winter. You can get snow stuck behind them, the wind whistles through them, and if your back's damp it feels cold. So although it can be a little more sweaty, I prefer a body hugging pack. Body hugging packs are more stable if you're on steep slopes or tricky ground as well. Well, we're getting towards the bottom of the pack now. And what else have I got in here? Well, I've got something that always ends up migrating towards the bottom, which are gaiters. That's because I don't like wearing gaiters. If there's deep snow, I'll set off with them on and just accept I have to wear them all day if I don't want my feet to freeze because my boots are filled up with snow. But I don't like them. So although I carry a pair, as I say, they generally work their way down to the bottom of the pack because I hope never to even see them. And then at the bottom are also items I rarely use and hope not to use. A Bivi bag, waterproof breathable Bivi bag, not one of the orange plastic bags, which might be alright in summer, but I wouldn't fancy being in one on a long winter night in the cold. You get condensation in them, they're awkward to use, they're easy to tear. This is a proper waterproof breathable bag, but also, even more important probably, is a bothy bag, because in a bothy bag you can sit up. The warmth provided is enormous. Group ones are great. I've used ones that will take 10 people. This is a two-person one for when I'm out on my own. The rucksack acts as the other person at the other end to hold it up. I can sit in this, have a snack, have a hot drink and get warm. Sometimes I use it if I really can't find any shelter and I haven't managed to use the shovel to dig a shelter, but I must admit most of the time it sits in the pack just in case. And then finally, again in case I get too wet or cold, spare clothing which just consists of a base layer for my top half if this one gets really sweaty, or you know, God forbid I fall into some water and it gets wet, and some spare socks. And that's my winter day kit. Next time I will be looking at some of the accessories I sometimes take, snowshoes, skis, and what I take with those. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting, anyone who's watching. Thank you.